Okay. Yep.
So we are rolling, and thank you for joining me today on Make Break. Today we have Garrett Anthony Rice. Garrett, nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Lance.
Thank you. We're talking about the artistic process, whether that's making or breaking things, people, ideas, concepts, and I'm very curious for picking your brains. Essentially, my first question is a bit more branded. What are you trying to make right now that you think will break something? Whether it's minds, concepts, attitudes, records, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've already written the third and fourth albums before Equinox is even released. We're doing a waterfall strategy at the moment with singles. So the next single is coming out now, just a bit of a plug, on the 22nd of September. It's called It's Not the Summer. And I hope you all listen to it. And I hope you enjoy it. But the creative process for me, it's very much, I think Bowie said that, 70 or 80% of artists, if they tell you that they know what they're going to come up with when they're writing a song, well, they're not telling the truth. It morphs into something, as far as I'm concerned, and then you use your skill as an artist and your skill as a songwriter and as a tunesmith to kind of mold it into the finished package, if you like, that the actual listener hears. Now, not to say that that doesn't happen, that you'll come across a guitar one night and next of all a song will spill out. You often hear Noel Gallagher saying of Oasis, he wrote that in 10 minutes or he wrote it in 15 minutes. It happens, and it has happened to me, but my process is very much a sort of a generic process where I'll come up with some chords, or I'll come up with a phrase or a lyric or a melody or something like that. And then I'll basically, through trial and error, I'll come up with what I think is presentable at the end of the day in relation to the song itself. And then a theme will emerge as the creative process is taking shape. It could take 2 weeks, Lance. It could take a month and a half, or else I could just completely discard something, having worked on it for a number of weeks or a number of days. And then what I come up with, as I said, it's for me. I write for me. And I've taken that advice from the likes of Bowie, Bob Dylan, Richard Ashcroft. You write the song for you. You make sure that you're happy with it and it's getting across a certain message. And then if people get the message and if they like the song, well, that's an added bonus. So my thought process in terms of creative process is to create the best records I can and the best songs I can, and then hopefully that resonates with the listener, whoever that might be. I don't discriminate in terms of who listens to my songs. I'm not someone who's targeting the heavy metal market or the alt market or the pop market. That's not the way I write, and it's not the way I was brought up, because I had such a variety of music in my house when I was younger, and in my teenage years. I mean, that goes for rap, soul, indie, Jimi Hendrix, all of that kind of stuff, the Beatles. It's all in there, and I think that's the way songwriting should be. I don't think you should be pigeonholed into a certain bracket. I think that if you write something and it resonates with people and you like it and you get off on it, well, then that's what it's all about.
So that's the make process. When it comes to breaking, I think I'd be curious to see what you have to say about what the things in the industry. There's always been rougher parts of the industry that people wish they could change. If there's something that you could break in this industry, what would it be?
Break and what? Change it?
Yeah, break it or just destroy it, eliminate it completely, or break like a bone. You can break something to repair it stronger, better, allow for
Um,
healing. I don't know. Up to you.
it's just maybe I'm too old or something, but it's a pet hate of mine at the moment. Is this acoustic guitar um, stuff that's come out at the moment, and kids, especially in Ireland, kids are following it. It's, gospel, where there's a capo on the sixth fret, and there's two strings, and there's two progressions from one fret to the other fret, and next of all there's just this warbling going on about rubbish lyrics about nothing. And I just, for the life of me, it's true. And as I said, I'm not being a prude, and I'm not being. I love all types of music, and I give everybody their dues. To do this is very difficult. You know, you're putting yourself out there. You know, you're presenting something that's in the universal ether, as far as I'm concerned. It's a special area. It's not something that you're, you know, I think Richard Ashcroft said, I'm not a butcher selling meat. You know, I'm not a news agent selling newspapers. I'm selling songs here, and I'm selling feelings, and I'm selling relating to people and their emotions and everything else. So it's a niche area, and I get that. But, you know, I just think that this kind of formulaic thing has just taken over. It's become something that young kids now are looking up to as, you know, something to strive for, when it's not. You know, anyone can do this. Anyone can write this kind of song that I've talked about. The real skill of it is, and as I said, my heroes, you know, is that otherworldly quality in the music and in the lyrics. Richard Ashcroft has it in terms of tapping into emotion. Hendrix has it in terms of his chord structures and the way he molds a song. Bowie had it just all over the place. I mean, he had it in so many aspects through his career that, you know, he would say himself, you know, he was lucky in certain respects in certain of the songs that he wrote. But that's the genius of it. That's where the uncertainty and the unrealness of it comes. The Beatles as well, Lennon, you know, these guys, Cobain. This doesn't just happen, you know, because you look at a YouTube video and you play the guitar and a couple of frets and you've got a song. This comes from somewhere else. It comes from somewhere else in the universe. And I mean, we've talked about, I think me and you have talked about, you know, frequencies and the fact that this is becoming more prevalent now in relation to the method of the universe, or the way the universe works. It's all to do with frequencies. It's all to do with sound. It's all to do with vibration. It's all to do with all that kind of stuff. So when you put what music should be, as far as I'm concerned, in that bracket, take the rest of it all out. There's loads of room for pop music. I've loads of room for that. I've loads of room for rap music. I've loads of room for all of that kind of stuff. But what's happening now is there's a formula being presented by the big companies, by the big record companies and certain media outlets as being great music, you know, and it's not. It's as simple as that. It's not. And as I've said, the real shame is that kids, back in my day, in the 80s, when I was a teenager, synths came in and electronica came in, and everyone was like, oh, the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar are gone now. Nobody's going to play them. They'll all be playing these programs and everything else. That didn't happen, because then you look at the Britpop era then in the 90s, that took off, as so to speak.
Grunge, the
Grunge,
entire revival
absolutely.
of
I mean, grunge was massive. Yeah, grunge was massive. But now you're looking
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, now you're looking at, you know, a guy with an acoustic guitar getting up with two chords and singing this kind of stuff down a microphone about emotion and all this kind of stuff. In Ireland as well, where I'm from, I mean, I've no qualms in saying it. I mean, this kind of thing of warbling down the microphone in a fey kind of Dublin accent or a country accent, it's become part of the mainstream now, where people are going, oh, this is amazing. And there's a room for it, don't get me wrong. But in terms of where I'm coming from and where my heroes are and what I think is great music, it's in a certain bracket, but it's not in the bracket that means anything to me. It's as simple as that. I mean, the Smiths, Morrissey's favourite quote was, you know, the DJ, he plays nothing that says, like he plays things that have nothing to do with my life. And that's the way I feel at the moment in terms of what I'm hearing on the radio and everything else. Maybe it's my age, but as I said, Lance, you know me, I'm honest. If anything, I'm honest. And I'm honest in my writing, and I'm honest in the way that I look at things and present things. So I couldn't sit on this podcast with you now and go, oh, the state of music at the moment is fantastic. It's great. It's not. It's not. No. In terms of creativity and in terms of new stuff coming through and stuff that gets you off your seat. It's not great at the moment. So that's well, if you're asking me to break things, I'll break them.
You would break you know, 2-chord, 2-tone clones. And it's interesting because that is, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd take the acoustic guitar and I'd smash it against the wall. That's what I do. Not just break it.
Too much twee folk shit up in those pubs in Ireland. I can totally take it.
It's unpopular. Don't get me wrong. And as I said, there's a place for it. I love folk music. I mean, there's the Dubliners and, you know, all of the great folk chieftains. All these guys, done what they done in a certain time bracket, and they continue to do it in terms of. I mean, that music is immortal. Luke Kelly is immortal as far as I'm concerned. He's the greatest singer we've ever produced on this island. But as I've said, what's been done now is that's been taken as a formula to sell records and to get streams and to get videos and to get likes and everything else, and it's diluting the art form. It's diluting that traditional music ether, which again, as I say, comes from somewhere else. I mean, Luke Kelly came from somewhere else. As I said, he was taken very, very quickly from us. Sinead O'Connor came from somewhere else. Shane MacGowan, Phil Lynott, who I'm a massive fan of. As I said, probably the only black guy in Ireland in the 70s and 60s and 70s, Lance. That'll tell you how backward our sort of our society was back then. He was literally probably the only black fella walking around town in Dublin at that particular point. So he came, and then he had this amazing talent for writing songs, and he just blew everybody away. So they're my heroes. They're the people I look up to, and I don't like this caricature or this kind of attempt to copy what was successful and make it into something that's mainstream, because it shouldn't be. That shouldn't be the way it is. It should be. You should be a unique person. When you're a songwriter or an artist, there should be a uniqueness to you, as far as I'm concerned. And as I've said, there's room for all sorts of genres of music, and I get that. But where I'm coming from, I don't aspire to that plane. I aspire to be something different, and have something to say.
I wonder if that's like the response to the circumstances. And you're honest and I'm honest. And if my honesty puts me counter to your opinion, we're gonna hash it out. That's kind of the beauty of this, is that
Yeah,
we can have an exchange of ideas. Fucking crazy, I know.
that's right.
We
Yeah,
can even hold two mutually exclusive ideas together at the same space. Fucking wow.
I
Oh,
think is that
now we're
Nash?
playing.
That's Nash's economic theory, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is, I think it's just a skill that everyone's missing out on.
yeah.
Being able to hold two mutually exclusive ideas together. It's very tough for a lot of people. I think when I hear that, I both agree and disagree, because I agree because, yeah, there's a lot of people that will like do the same thing. It's actually funny. I actually feel the same way about a lot of rap nowadays. That said, I actually know and am exposed to a lot of alternative rap. And that's the difference, is that I do see a lot of clones, and I do see a lot of people that just, you know, ride the same fucking waves that many do. And I also see the people that go completely into the underground and do their own thing. And then, funny enough, they just, because they're doing their own thing, over time, they eventually develop such a following that you turn around one day and it's like, holy shit, these guys have been selling out like stadiums,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, because they're doing it their own way, and in a not like completely without apology.
Mm.
It's interesting that you mentioned like that like the twee folk, fey type thing, because I actually honestly don't even think about it. It doesn't show up in my world or feed at all, which is really interesting to see what our different respective like streams of content, music, etc. are.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the same thing, is that we're all being fed a very different set of content, and as such we're a very different reality in a lot of ways, depending on how much phone you consume in a day.
There's a dumbing.
Um,
There's a dumbing down, Lance. There's a dumbing down. Let's be honest about it. As I said, I mean, you mentioned rap music. I mean, I was there as a teenager when rap emerged, and you've got like the likes of Chuck D and Public Enemy, KRS One. You've got Nas. You've got like these people talking about where they're from and what it's all about, and the inequality in America for a black person over there at that particular time.
mhm.
It came from the streets because they got something to get off their chest. They've got something to say. And now, as I've said, I mean, we all know the gangster rap came up through in the early 90s with NWA and everything else, who I have a huge amount of time for. I have a huge amount of time for. Snoop Dogg, all of those guys. I love all their music. But now, as I said, it's now a formula. You know, there's a car, money on the table, and a girl dancing, and that's it, as far as I can see. There's no one with anything progressive to say in rap music anymore, which is a complete shame. I
Oh,
mean,
I'd push back on that. I'd push back on that because
well,
there are.
just before you say, Lance, I just wanted to mention to you that there is a healthy underground rap scene in Dublin. For a lot of people, a lot of guys coming from inner city, stroke middle, working class areas in Dublin, who are putting out some great stuff, and it's on YouTube. And I'd urge your listeners to have a listen to it. I know Kneecap has sort of they've taken over the genre, if you like, in terms of the publicity and everything else that they've got into. But there is a very healthy underground rap scene in Dublin, and also in other counties in Ireland as well, the likes of Cork, County Cork, County Limerick. Guys just doing it, just trying to say what they feel and try and, do something different than, crime and all that kind of stuff. I know it's a cliche, but that's the reality. I mean, in terms of Ireland, in these working class areas, a lot of them don't have any alternative. So this is a kind of a way that they can get their voice across. So that's what I'm saying. The genre of rap music was a music of protest. That's as far as I'm concerned when it first came out. Now you had everything else in terms of, that kind of great rap. I'm trying to recall who you'd have in terms of.
Mate, you've already mentioned such great. You went like the list that you mentioned of like the greats. I was like, damn, that's actually a very impressive list.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
very impressive
But
list.
then you had, like, I mean, you had rap music where you had the likes of Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince and all that kind of stuff. That was all great as well. I replay those songs back on on YouTube. Those early '90s rap hits, if you want to call them, rather than protest songs. And everything merged into a kind of a melting pot, which was great. And that was progress, and that's the way it should have been, because it deserved that. But as I said, that particular genre at the moment is stale. And as I said, it's such a shame, because I love all that kind of music, I really do. But I still go back and listen to the '90s stuff before I listen to anything recent. Maybe Migos. I think Migos are. I think that trap early singles they had was immense, and I actually, there's a lot of UK rappers as well, who like Stormzy and stuff. I'm more a fan of Dave, who I think is really really talented, but that's there as well. But as I said, I would always revert back to the '90s people. I think I insted Chuck D there the other day. I gave him a copy of my single, I Found Myself Today, just to see what he thought, because it was quite radical. So whether to see what his reaction would be, he hasn't come back to me, but I'm sure he will.
I want to come back to like the thing of like there isn't any, because it's interesting to hear it, because I think that there must be, we just don't. There are so many musicians that don't want to do the hardest work, which is promoting themselves, and that's a very annoying. That's a very annoying thing for musicians to hear, because musicians regularly are being told, "You're not doing enough. You're not spending enough. You're not touring enough. You're not playing enough. You're not making enough. You're not doing enough social media," which sucks, because they're also right. They're wrong and they're right, and that's the tough thing. Is that like it's so easy for me as a non-musician now to be like, "Oh, you should do this, this, and this, and this." But the reason I'm saying it now is because A, I have been there. I have done the touring bit. I have done recording. I've recorded various different, singles, EPs, albums. I've put out vinyl. I've done all of what you can do, except for like, be in the success, so to speak. And that's okay. I love that. But what I want people to understand is that if you aren't willing to keep banging the drum, if you aren't willing to repeat, if you aren't willing to jam a song 1,000 times, if you aren't willing to play it over and over and over again, then what the fuck are you doing in this industry? Literally, like, people are like, "Oh, I can't repeat myself." What do you think music is, my friend? How many times have you listened to a fucking song that you love? 1,000, 10,000 times? Seriously, like, think about it for a second here. Like, what kills me about what kills me about this is that what you're saying is true when you look at it in the macro, but when you look at it in the micro, if you look under the hood in the substructure of things, and I'm not just talking about underground, because underground is like a very healthy but very curated community. What I'm talking about is the worm meal, the worm food that is not even known. I'm going to share a stat with you, and I want to see what you think of this, what you
Mhm.
make of this. What percentage of songs do you think on Spotify have less than 1,000 streams?
60%.
86%.
Wow. Okay.
As of, I believe that was a Luminate report. Oh no, that was DJ Mag from Jan of last year.
Okay.
But they're reporting the same thing that is anyway. So that Luminate report is what I'm talking about, a 2023
Well,
report.
there
It's
could be,
also
yeah, there could be two reasons for that. One, the stuff's not very good, or two, because it's such a saturated area that people they actually don't know what to listen to. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. I mean, what's the stat? 100,000 songs a day or something has been launched on
correct.
Spotify. I mean,
100,000 songs a day
a day,
on
yeah.
average.
And look, let's be honest about it. I mean, I don't know what the quality of those songs are, or what genres they're in, or everything else. But let's 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 take a guess that they're not very good, because if people
Or
aren't
at least
listening or
mid,
connecting,
which is even worse.
yeah. So what I'm saying to you is, you can promote, you can promote a dud as much as you like. And as I said, you've taught me through V13 Media how to present and promote my songs, which I hadn't a huge grasp on before. But if you're promoting a dud and the music's no good, forget it. That's not going to happen. So it's probably a two-pronged thing from what I can see.
I'd say that it's interesting to see as well that like people are still capable of promoting what you consider a dud, but like there's still going to be an audience somewhere for that. The way I see it is this: if there's someone who's willing to listen to just dreck, just absolute garbage that is just fed to them, and they just listen to it because it's just what's done, then I can't help but think that like if somebody just was a bit more strategic or just clever or just smart about like where it goes or to whom or through which channel, like they can at least get more pickup than if there was absolutely nothing, which we agree. If you just upload something to Spotify and it gets 0 streams, you're not alone. I want to tell you another stat from that same report, Luminate in back in 2023. Do you want to take a guess at how many songs had 0 streams? I'm not talking about less than 1,000 now. This is a totally different thing. I mean, literally 0 streams.
Well, are we talking 40% of the 86, or we're taking 40% of the 100? What are we talking?
It's a lot. It's a
Oh,
lot, but
well then,
it's closer to 50% than you'd think.
okay, I was going to say 40%, something like that.
So at that point, there were, and I'm just going to make sure that I have the number correct, 45.6 million songs that had 0 streams.
Okay, okay,
45.6 million.
yeah,
And this is the thing is that like you kind of have to work hard to have 0 streams, don't you?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
absolute, not even one, not
Well,
even 10. What?
you see, this is where,
Like,
where the amateurs people are coming in, and they're just downloading something off, they've recorded in their bedroom, and they think that it's
yeah.
going to be spotted by a record producer, and then next of all, it's going to blow up. That's that. I mean, I'm not coming from a position of expertise here whatsoever, because my debut album, I recorded it throughout the summer of 2023, and I released it in October 23, which will give you an indication of sort of my journey so far. That caught the interest of Chris Potter, producer, who's produced the Stones and Richard Ashcroft and the Verve, and God knows it. Well, he's produced everybody. He caught the bug of it, and I was working with him in February 24, which is kind of mind blowing. He wanted to work with me. So my journey here in terms of the new album and everything else, I'm new to this game, but in terms of the promotion aspect of it, it's something that I think I rang up a guy who I'd been referred to, an entertainment lawyer, and he said, what are your socials back in 23 when I'd released the album? And I said, what do you mean? What socials? So I didn't even have an Instagram account at that particular point. So I'm not coming from a position of expertise, but what I will say is this, is that posting, promotion, having someone to guide you, and, you know, as you said, the incessant sort of monotonous promotion and posting and preparing CapCut videos for Instagram and YouTube and everything else, it definitely works. I mean, I had a guy on who, I think he's been working with you guys as well. I won't say his name, but he was just reaching out from Instagram, and he said to me, how have you achieved what you've achieved so far? And I said it's quite simple. I said it's true promotion. I said it's true, you know, incessant publicizing of what you're doing. Good music, I mean, that's all part of the mix, and getting yourself out there in terms of trying to make contacts through business, you know, business people, industry people. I've been hugely lucky, Lance, with the people I've met so far. You know, I've been so blessed to work with the top people in the industry, even though I'm only starting off, and I'm so grateful for that. You guys as well coming in as well. So, you know, it's been a huge sort of luck journey for me as well as everything else. However, and I think you'll probably testify to this, I do put the work in, because you have to put the work in, because otherwise it's like anything in life. If you don't put the work in, you're not going to get any rewards, or you're not going to get any publicity. So the next step for me now will hopefully be touring, and that's a different. I've done that with bands when I was a teenager, but that's a different discipline altogether, where you're physically traveling. You know, you're putting yourself out there, you're performing every night and everything else. That's a different discipline now that I've got to, you know, get myself into the zone for. But in terms of promotion, you know, the music's not going to sell itself. You know, this kind of overnight success like you had in the 80s when a song came out and it was on, well, we had Top of the Pops, it was called, every Thursday night, which was the British charts.
Right.
And that was like your be all and end all for the week. There was no such thing as MTV. That came later. But, you know, as a teenager, that would have been the go-to show. And you would have seen like the likes of, I remember Bros, who actually Chris Potter produced. I was slagging him when I was over there, because I said to him, yeah, Bros, yeah, they had some really kind of catchy songs, but not great songs. And he said, would you believe I produced that album? It was called Push, and it sold ridiculous amounts of copies. And he actually had the platinum disc in his home studio when we were talking, which is a really good story to have. But the likes of their first song was called When Will I Be Famous? But they had a little kind of a clickbait in that they were two really good looking twins. So they had blonde hair and they had the leather jackets on and everything else, and they created a thing around it. But that was literally an overnight sensation, Lance, on Top of the Pops. And they blew up, and they actually blew up, and a couple of years later actually they fell out with each other, but I think they're back talking to each other. But that doesn't happen now. I mean, even Taylor Swift, who I have a lot of time for as a songwriter, I think she's a great songwriter. She gives a story of like her driving around with her mum, going to these record company offices, trying to get like them to hear her on an acoustic guitar, and, you know, trying to struggle along. I think Sabrina Carpenter, I think this is her 7th or 8th album, until she blew up. Now, it's not my thing, it's not my genre of music whatsoever, but that'll show you in terms of somebody persevering where the door is being closed on you all the time, and they just keep going and they keep going. So, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is all doors have opened to me, which, you know, I obviously, look, you get people who don't like your stuff, or, you know, they'll push back at you and say, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But I haven't had those setbacks yet. And as I said, it's been an upward trajectory since 2023 for me, which I'm so delighted with. But when you look at those people, and now people think, oh, Sabrina Carpenter, she's everywhere. It didn't happen overnight. It happened 7 albums later, or 6 albums later. And probably the stuff that she done now is probably the same kind of stuff she was doing back then, but it just didn't have an audience. So now it does, and now she's world famous. And, you know, the fame and stuff and money and all that kind of stuff, that's great. The reason it would be great for me, Lance, is because I can provide for my family, but also it gives me the space to create. So, for instance, these 3rd and 4th albums, you know, I'd like to have an orchestra. I'd like to have the top musicians who I had on my record now on the same record, and maybe a couple of other top musicians as well, maybe American guys or something like that. But you need money to do that. And if this is a business, and again, advice that I would always give someone is you need to treat it like a business. Because, as I've said, you're going to be shipping out money. If you're serious about this, if you want to get the best result, you're going to have to pay money to get the best result. It's like anything in life. You don't get anything for free, and you don't get the best people for free. And that's as simple as that. So my view on this is, the talent that you have, don't waste it. Just don't waste it. If you've got a talent, you make sure you make the maximum out of that talent. And then obviously the business side comes in, where you make hopefully smart decisions and listen to advice from people who know what they're talking about. And that's what I've done up to now, is I've listened to the advice from the top industry professionals that I've worked with. That's all I've done. I don't profess to be, someone who's, really smart, and he's made his way through this industry so flawlessly. That's not the case. I've listened to advice I've been given, and I've followed it.
I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of people lack, though, is being able to listen and make and like truly understand that maybe they don't, maybe like the phrase "I might be wrong" is so rare nowadays. I feel like, and I feel like people are like, I mean, because of the bombast and prickishness that is sort of prevalent in, I don't know, politics, society, everything, gestures that our neighbors to the south, and now more so up here as well. Like there's this like level of, oh, I know everything and you're wrong and I'm right. That it does sound and feel good to a certain extent, but that is so surface thin compared to what you can and will achieve if you're willing to understand that you don't actually know anything. If you just remind yourself, like, I really don't know anything,
Yeah.
and not get lost in it. Don't get lost in the sauce. All I want for people, I would urge people to remind themselves of is, I don't actually know everything, or frankly anything. Stay curious, and that curiosity, that willingness to accept that sometimes you just don't know in that space. And furthermore, that follows, though, that sometimes those experts aren't the most aware of that as well. That it's a tough thing, because you want to be able to stay curious and allow for other people to inform that. I think that there's something to be said for, um, God, I think it was Rick Rubin. I recently read The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and
I've seen
he
Rick's
had
posts. Yeah, I've seen his posts on Instagram.
yeah, he's funny on Instagram. He actually does just like, or sorry, you've probably seen reels of him talking to others on podcasts. Whereas for him, his own actual account, he does this really funny thing. But I'll get to that in a sec. In his book, he states, there's something to be said, that there's like a balance to be struck, and he says to act like a scientist with faith, which I found very fascinating, because you do have to. And so me and Chris, we have that love and logic approach. The reason that we came to that, by the way, is because me and him are like polar opposites.
Yeah.
Me and him are so fucking diametrically opposed, because we come at it from completely different
Yeah.
perspectives. So what we have to remind ourselves is, he was like, well, you just have to come at it with love. And I'm like, where's the logic? And so eventually we kind of had this melding of like, okay, two things can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's not. And so the only way that that can exist, though, is if you stay curious by allowing complexity. That's the important thing. So that's the thing that I think you are embodying, is that you're willing to not say, I know what I need for me, okay? And that there is power to that, but it'll only get you so far.
Yeah. I mean, Steve Albini, God rest him, of a lot of
Yeah,
time for him. I mean, that guy
R.I.P.
was, he was alternative
So
rock.
instrumental.
Just amazing. I
Yeah,
mean, he charged everybody the
yeah.
same fee. He had this studio in his house that he built himself, and he just produced these incredible records by incredible artists. He, I mean, I'm talking about giants. We were talking about giants of the industry. As far as I'm concerned, he's right up there. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
His great quote was, to make music, to make music, you have to earn the right to make music. So his advice was, you
Yes.
stay at your job and you pay the bills every week, and then to make the music that you want to make should be a privilege where you have that space to make music in the first place. So a lot of these
Yes.
kids, and I think I said it earlier on, they're seeing these guys like Ed Sheeran and all this kind of stuff, and you know,
Hmm.
fair enough. Look, no harm to him. As I said, he's playing to
Oh,
stadiums
mate,
and all
yeah.
that. No, no, no.
He's not big for no reason.
No, in fairness to him as well, he ploughed his furrow. I mean, I remember him on Glastonbury as a young fella,
Yep.
playing acoustic guitar on the small stage in the studio, and everybody clapping and thinking it was great and all that. That's fine. I get all that, but to have that space to create as an artist, um, you need to treat it as a business, as I said originally, but you also need to give yourself that space where financially you can do it. You can go into a studio, you can pay a fee to a producer, you can say, look, can I have the studio for the day? I have this idea, I want to trash it out. Can you help me in terms of what I want to do and everything else? And to make an album, as I've said, I mean, there's costs and fees involved in that and everything else. So this isn't something that you pick up an acoustic guitar and you go on TikTok and you actually you do an impression of somebody else's song, and you sing in a kind of a quiet voice, and you think that people are going to look at it, and you get loads of likes and everything else, but you're not going to make it as an artist. The only way you can make it as an artist is if you're an individual and you create your own stuff, and that will always be the case. If you can't write songs that are that are have something to say, are melodic, and you know. Say something or grab something like Richard Ashcroft. I mean, he's tapped into an emotional uh, 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 connection with people, and that's through the writing of his songs. Some of his songs are very simple; they're three chords, and he'll tell you that himself. But what he puts into them, and the melodies he puts into it, and the feeling that he puts into his lyrics, and the way he sings it, that's the connection. That's where greatness comes from. So it's worrying me that there's a formula being peddled out there that if you follow you'll blow up and that you'll do great, when in fact you won't. And also the big worry and the big risk is, Lance, if you've got everybody following the same trend, well, that trend is going to burn out very quickly because people will get bored of it. It's as simple as
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, you will, because as I said, you look
It'll
at you
sort
look at
itself out in a way.
yeah, you look at that kind of that genre, and then that'll be gone in what, a year or two, whatever it is. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not Ed Sheeran. He's a musician and he writes his own
Yeah.
songs, and I get all that. But in terms
Yeah.
of connection, or in terms of tickling my taste buds or my earbuds in relation to what I'm hearing, it's not working for me, and it probably doesn't work for a lot
Right.
of people. But he has his audience, and that's fine. But for me, that's not what it's all about.
Well, and that's just it. Is like you touched on a really important. You touched on many important points. Which thread I end up taking here will probably be very revealing. But when it comes to making money as a musician, that's the biggest thing that like musicians are getting shafted on,
Yeah,
for the most part, because that's the thing that, first of all, when a musician talks about making money, um, at, I gotta wonder at. There's two things at once. Okay, one is, who are you to be talking about that at this stage? This stage meaning like whatever arbitrary level that musician is at. Whether some people might say that that's when you're at a hundred monthly listeners, or 1,000, or 10,000, or 100,000. All of that to me just doesn't really sit well. All I mean is that I have an initial thing of like, why should it be making you money right now when you've only exerted X amount? But then there's another equal and opposite reaction I have inside of me. And that is like, why the fuck do we, as people that are in the music industry, all seem to agree that like, you don't get to make any money when you go off of this, when you start out. In fact, you need to be sinking money into this. And in fact, you need to be doing it for a long, long time. And the only way that you can make any real chance at making money, you gotta sign over your ability to make potentially lots of money. And to me, the thing is like, I think it's because of how putrid the industry has been historically and currently is also. that musicians that think that they can make money off of streaming, God bless them. They already have no idea. They, with all due respect, like I know that I might be wrong, but I'm telling you, we
It,
just went through the stats, and also that entire ecosystem is also getting flooded with AI. Like there's loads of artists that are coming out, not even art, like AI versions of things where the hand holding the the mouse that or keyboard hand behind the keyboard doing the prompt has like various different fake iterations of quote unquote artists so that they can like venture capital their way or like arbitrate their way into making money off of the fucking platform, which to me is like quite truly the grossest version of all that, which leads me to, if an artist wishes to at least break even, to me, that's the goal. If you can sustain your own internal wheel, brother, you are onto something. That's something I'm interested in.
well,
And if it's through what you do with the music itself, that's incredible.
well, that's where the problem is, because if you're chasing the dollar, if you're chasing the euro, if you're chasing the, you know, whatever it is, if you're chasing it,
True.
a Canadian dollar, if you're chasing that,
The loony.
yeah, you're gonna assimilate, or you're gonna sort of glide into something that works in terms of working in this particular environment. So what you're going to write
Just for the money.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, what you're going to write is you're going to try and pander to what's popular, and there's no harm in that. As I said, there's no harm in it. But as I said, from where I'm coming from, and maybe it's because I'm old school, and maybe it's because, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, that that connection with a band or that connection with an artist, it does something to you. It does something to your life. I mean, I can remember in Dublin especially, the Smiths were massive, and they were my band. Smiths and Morrissey were my band. I mean, I had my hair, I know it's whatever it is now, but I mean, I had a massive quiff, and I used to wear white jeans with Crombie coats and all that kind of stuff, and I used to love it. And I used to live my life to them, and that's the way a lot of teenagers in Dublin did, and in Ireland did. They used to live their life to the bands that they followed, The Cure, even heavy metal, the likes of Iron Maiden, Metallica. You guys coming around with the long hair and the black t-shirts and all that. That was
The era
commonplace.
of hair metal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
100%.
commonplace in Ireland in the 80s and 90s. But it did something to you in terms of you'd assimilate with these people, you'd assimilate with the music, you assimilate with what they were trying to stand for, or what they sung. You loved the tunes, and it meant something. It meant something to you, and it still means something to people. People go, I go to the Smiths tribute bands with my dad. My dad's 76. And as I said, he's the reason why I do this, because music was constantly on in our house from when I was age 2 or 3. It was
Oh, man.
all the time it was on. But we go to see the Smiths tribute bands. I think we're going actually the end of this month. They're called These Charming Men in Dublin. Yeah, they're really good. I think they've got a new lead
Oh,
singer.
mate.
Yeah, they've got a new lead singer. And just to say that, that's what music meant to me and still means to me now. And I know people who grew up in the 90s, even the Oasis reunion. I mean, does that not demonstrate that people have, if they have an affinity, or they have, a relationship or a connection with a musician or music, or even Liam Gallagher, the way he goes on, people try and mimic that and everything else. I mean, is that not what music should be, or should be about? Because as far as I'm concerned, music was everything to me growing up. It was an escape. It was everything. And Noel Gallagher will tell you that as well. I mean, where they were from was fairly rough, and I think he had a rough childhood and everything else. But he said once he picked up that guitar, he just escaped from life, and he was able to create and everything else. That's what music is. It's magic. It's not something that you can. This AI thing as well. I was asked a question about it, and I said, look, AI can't get up to you from the stage and sweat the music and sweat the lyrics to you when you're in the crowd. AI can't do that. So forget about this thing about it dominating the airwaves and platforms and all that. You're not going to have a hologram going on tour around Europe or the States or South America and 80,000 people jumping up to it. That ain't going to happen. I don't care what anyone says. And now you're talking about musicians' financial streams. I mean, look, Spotify is what it is. I think they're changing their terms actually at the end of the end of the month. So we'll see how that
Yep.
develops and everything else. But
True.
streams don't pay. Let's be honest. Let's call it a spade a spade. They don't pay.
Yeah,
So what you're looking at
they
in
don't.
terms of you guys would probably be better off or better in a position to advise me on how I'm going to make my money. But if I'm looking at it here, I'm looking at merch. I'm looking at
There it
touring.
is.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yep.
at syncing for movies and TV.
There it is. The
And
Holy Trinity.
the Holy Trinity, yeah. And as I said, I'm counting them on my fingers here. And then I'm saying to myself, how else can I make money apart from those? Now, there might be like TV appearances if that came up. There might be, interviews and podcasts and fees and all that kind of stuff. I get that. But apart from that, so what I'm saying to you is that if you're chasing a stream on a Spotify platform or you're chasing a like on an Instagram, that's not going to make you money. If you think that, you formulaic and you bring out this rubbish acoustic guitar song and it has 7 million streams on Spotify, that's about $4,000 or whatever it is, $5,000, $6,000. Forget that. So you might as well be authentic, because as I said, when I write the songs, and the songs in Equinox, I'll stand over every one of those songs because they mean something. They're about something. They're written for somebody. They're about themes in life. They're about inconsistencies and injustice in this society and in past societies, which have been, as far as I'm concerned, brushed under the carpet. So anything I'm writing, like as I said, I found myself today, has an anti-war undertone to it. It's calling out what's going on in the world today. It's also calling out what has gone on in the world in the past in relation to the amount of wars, killing, innocent people, children murdered for what? For what? And you look at it now, for what? I mean, what's this about? Drones like slicing people in two when they're sitting in their sitting room and all this. What's all this about? That's not humanity. It's not life. It's not real. It's like a computer game. It's turned into a computer game. And all these interviews that are given by these, sycophants and people who, know what they're saying is rubbish. They know what they're saying is wrong. Because as far as I'm concerned, you're born right. If you turn nasty, if you turn evil, that's true life experience as far as I'm concerned. You're not born evil. That doesn't happen. When you're a child, you're a child. And I'm just saying to you that at the end of the day, what's going on and has gone on in the past is just it just doesn't bear thinking about anymore. And as I said, it upsets me terribly. So what I do is I write about it and I put some positive force into a negative. And if that comes out in terms of the creative process the way I hope it will, well then great. That's what I want. That's what I'm striving for as an artist. I'm not striving for people to sing my songs back to me in a stadium, and if they do, great. But when I'm sitting there and I'm all alone with a guitar, I'm on my own, and I'm an acoustic guitar, Lance, it's a very singular instrument. It's kind of like, it's just strings. I know this is obvious, but it's just strings. But if I hit a note, and some songs I've written where I've hit the wrong note and I've gone, hang on, that's good, just completely by chance. And you kind of go, hang on a minute now, hang on a second. And then you sort of just get a sort of a vibe going and everything else. There's no better feeling in the world. There's no better feeling in the world than writing a song. It's hard work and it's laborious and it can be a pain in the ass because the stuff that you throw away and you kind of go, oh no, I've just put now 3 days into that and it's not working. But when it works and when you like it and when people come back and say they like it and they connect with it, there's no greater feeling. You could give me all the money in the world, I'd give it back to you and say, listen, this is the greatest feeling that you could ever have, because as I said, it's such a special area. It's something that's not of this world, and a lot of the songwriters will tell you that they just catch the song. It comes to them from somewhere else, and they just catch the song or the melody or whatever it is, and then they write it. Now, I don't think I'm as lucky as that. I have to work at it quite hard, but sometimes it does happen. And as I said, when it does happen, it's special. But I'm a fairly prolific writer, so I've 45 songs written, with lyrics for the third and fourth albums. So when Equinox eventually drops, we'll have to sit down and work out how we're going to do it. My like would be, or my wish would be, to release 2 albums back to back. Do a Guns N' Roses. Use Your Illusion. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Now, it won't take as much time to record them as they did, but I'll
Yeah.
I'll sit down with the team. I'll sit down with Chris and Chris Potter, and we'll work out what we're going to do. But again, that all takes time, scheduling, finance, all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. So, you know, the way I write, and as I said, lyrics to me come very, very easily. So the kind of the work in this is the melody and the chords and the structure. That's really where it is. And once I have that, then I wrote a song there a couple of days ago, and I just wrote the lyrics down in 15 minutes. They come to me very, very easily. It's a gift that I have, and I've always had that gift, which I don't take for granted whatsoever. But yeah, it's as I said to you, it's a special thing, and as I said, not a lot of people can do it, and not a lot of people can do it well or with relevance. So that's what I'm saying to you. I've no difficulty. My eldest son now, he's 17 in December. He's taken up the guitar. I bought him a guitar, his first real guitar, on Saturday, and he loves
What kind?
Yeah, he loves Oasis. He loves he loves all that stuff. He's playing along to the tunes, and he's getting good now. He's getting good. But I just said to him, I said, listen, you won't need anything else when you have a guitar. Believe me, and you get into it, and you get into the joy it gives you. Forget it. Forget everything else. Forget PlayStations and fucking Xboxes and all that rubbish. I said, this is, you're going back to the roots here. And as I'm a huge blues fan, I love Southern Delta blues, and I always think to myself, and as I said, I've got a song on the new record called "The Coastal Walls," and you've heard it, in relation to the plight of the African Americans at the moment. But I always think to myself, those people, what they went through, when they were abused and everything else. We won't go into that. When you hear the song, you'll hear what I'm saying. But I mean, all they had was that guitar and a bottleneck, and they played that. They played those songs. That was the song. That was from Africa originally. That's where those songs came from. Is the African influence that was there, and then they developed into the blues that you hear on Southern blues. I'm talking about Mississippi John Hurt. I'm talking about Son House. I'm talking about John Lee Hooker. I'm talking about roots music that really means something and that is something. That's a people's culture that you're listening to. It's a privilege. Yeah, you should always. I always say to people, you should never always listen to something like that as a privilege, because there's a history to that, and it's something that's all they had, Lance. They were slaves. They had no money. They were abused. They had no clothes even, hardly, and all they had was they had that music that kept them going, and they had that music that kept their spirit up. And some might say that it was sort of homogenized by the 60s with the Stones and everything else, but I don't think so. I think what it did was it highlighted that music for the generation now, the generation back then, and obviously the generation now, which obviously then influenced rock and roll. It influenced what you hear nowadays in terms of blues music with certain influences. I have certain blues influences in some of the songs on Equinox, which they're not straight Southern Delta blues songs, but I mean, for instance, Eden has a brilliant slide guitar from Adam Phillips in that song. It's just brilliant.
Hmm.
Another song called In the Nighttime We Shone, where Adam Phillips just turns it into a swamp blues with beautiful slide guitar and effects, and there's a bit of wah at the end of it and everything else. And that's all part of my makeup in terms of how I write songs and my influences. And as I said, I'm a firm believer that if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. So I always say to myself, I try and immerse myself in as much culture and as much musical influences and styles as I can. Going back to the 1800s, I don't care. I'll go back and listen to Mozart, I'll listen to Beethoven, and I'll get something out of that, because I'll say to myself, Jesus, I mean, that's where all this is leading up to. So, as I said, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but as I said, 2 chords and a fucking capo on the 6th fret ain't gonna do it for me. It ain't gonna do it. I'm sorry. I have no interest in that whatsoever. What I do have an interest in is something new, that emerges from God knows where. And I listen to, as I said, Migos, a huge amount of time for that group. I think they're fantastic. I just, as I said, when Trappin' came out, maybe I wasn't, I was saying to myself, hang on a second, is this really it? And then that album came out from Migos, and those singles came out on YouTube. And I said, this is absolutely fantastic. So there's an example of something coming from left field out of a certain genre, which is new and fresh and means something. So, as I said, my music has all those influences in it, but hopefully the melting pot throws out something different.
That's a lot of fire in the booth. Let me tell you, I don't even know which the thread to take up there, but I have one that I just have to know. You said you brought your son
Yeah.
a guitar. I gotta know, what kind did you get him?
I think it's a attack of mine. It's a fairly decent one.
A what?
Attack of mine. I actually have I perform an acoustic guitar that I bought myself, which is Takamine, and it's Takemine.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Okay.
and it's a
Japanese.
Yeah, it was a couple of quid now, but I just, the sound of it and everything else. I actually wrote a song on it about 3 days ago, and just the sound out of it was amazing when we played it in the shop. But like my as I said, hopefully when things pick up, you know, Martin guitars acoustically are my go-to. I just think there's something about them. I just think there's a sound or a sort of a quality or a warmness to them that you just can't get anywhere else. And yeah, that's when the tour comes up. Hopefully, you know, that's going to be front and center. So yeah.
Nice.
So look, as I said, I'm kind of smart, Lance. You know, I'll give him a set of golf clubs because he's into golf as well, knowing quite well that it'll keep him off the street and he won't get into trouble because he's on the golf course. And if I give him a guitar, he's going to be up in his bedroom rather than roaming the streets, getting into all sorts of trouble. He's not that kind of kid anyway. But you know, that's my sort of. I'm giving him the gift of music that I was given, and I'll just tell you a quick story. My first acoustic guitar, my uncle Joe was living in the UK, in London, and this is in the 80s, Lance. And just to put it into context, in Ireland in the 80s, we had huge national debt. Nobody had any money. A lot of people were on social welfare, and I mean, we were in a council house in a working class area. So in terms of getting a guitar, you can forget it. That wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But my uncle Joe was working on the building sites in London, which a lot of Irish did, and a lot of Irish continue to do. And this would have been in the early to mid 80s. And he came over for a visit at Christmas time, and he had a big Crombie coat, which was probably about 3 sizes too big for him. And he smuggled in an acoustic guitar, a VHS video recorder, which you probably don't even know about. Have you ever seen them with the top loader video recorders?
Of course, the VHS. I've had them. Yeah.
This wasn't one that you slid in. Yeah, it's not one you slid in. This is one where the thing came up and you put the thing in. That'll tell you how. It was like the Enigma machine from World War II, right?
Yeah.
He smuggled that in,
Yeah.
and a Labrador puppy under the one coat.
What?
Yeah. He smuggled the 3 things under the one coat. So he turned up at our house on Christmas, I don't know what it was, I think it was 2 days before Christmas. And he said, that's for you, Garrett. And he gave it to me. I don't even think it was a make of an acoustic guitar. It was just an acoustic guitar. I remember it had the steel strings, and when you tried to press on it, I couldn't do it because your fingers are just, you know, you have to callous your fingers now. But I remember pressing on it going, I'll never learn how to do this. And that was probably the greatest gift he ever gave me, because, as I said, as a kid, you know, I was hugely into music anyway, but that was something that, like, at 9 o'clock at night, if you didn't have anything to do in your room, you just picked that up. You'd play maybe 3 chords, A, D, and E all night. Now, my son is doing it at the moment. He's driving me mental, but, you know, yeah, it was a gift that he gave, and he gave us the VHS video recorder as well. So we had probably in the 80s, as I said, VH video recorder sort of emerged, and this was like one that came out in probably 81. So it was like, you know, the kind of the steel buttons to kind of get it to play. So it was probably the most old-fashioned video recorder in Ireland, but we had one, so we were delighted, because normally what you used to do was, and I remember this vividly as a child, E.T. would be on a pirate video cassette. Okay, so people would record it from the movies with a video camera and then put it on a blank tape. So then we would go into
Oh my
somebody's
God.
house and we would watch it on the blank tape as kids. I mean, there would be about 20 kids in the sitting room. And in fact, I think we were charged 20 old pence to go in and sit on the sitting room floor and watch this on the screen. Now it was all kind of rough and stuff like that, but we got to see E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. That was '83, I think, and
Yeah.
that was the be all and end all. So for us to have a VHS video recorder, even though it was a tank,
Oh, it's nuts.
yeah, it was like a
Oh
World War
yeah.
One tank,
Doesn't
was
matter. It's
huge.
incredible.
So he gave us the gift of VHS and guitar. So
I
that's
mean, what else do you need?
what else do you need?
What else do you need?
Yeah.
You need what? No, you've the two greatest mediums. Uh, this has been amazing, and I really appreciate you taking me through some of the most amazing. It's been amazing to have you on, and I'm so blown away by some of your answers. And I think I am not alone. I think that there's a lot of insight into just how it feels to be in the industry right now, what it means to actually make it, and how to break it in this industry. It's been a pleasure. Really has, Garrett.
Thanks, Lance. It's been a pleasure for me. I haven't made it yet, but hopefully I'm getting there. And as I said, I hope people just resonate with the music and resonate with me as a personality. That's all I can do. As I said, I'm me. I can't. You know, my days of I don't know, doing photo shoots for aftershave companies are probably behind me. However, however, I do I do value, you know, the chance to go in and maybe record my next album. If I get a chance to do that and get the finance, get the backing to do that and the support, that'd be immense. And as I said, that's the reason I do this, is to be able to create the art and to put it out there and then hopefully resonate with people, and people, you know, they like it and they get it, and they think it's quite good. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Take care, and all the best.
Thanks, lads.